Good morning, everyone. Welcome to RSA Day 2. Our topic for today is forensic skill set techniques for extraction and analysis of the evidence. Our guest speaker is a cybersecurity expert and CEO of Secure, Paula J. If you could please ask you to silence your phones. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you. So yeah, as you can see, I'm Paula J. and Paula Januszkiewicz because I technically come from Poland. And in Poland we got this long and complex last name that are hard to pronounce even by Polish people, so here we go. Well, today we're going to be talking about the forensic skill set techniques for extraction and analysis of the evidence. First of all, of course, for the savoir vivre, let me introduce myself. I'm the CEO of Secure. This is the company that I have established actually 15 years ago. We're going to celebrate the 15th anniversary in October this year. So time flies. I'm in the cybersecurity market for the past 20 years. And there are so many things that change, but you know it perfectly. And today we will be talking about forensics. And that's the subject that has been always there. And right now it is especially there because there are so many attacks happening. But I'm going to give you the background for that during the presentation as well. Well, as simple as this, of course, I like to talk a lot, and we've got 50 minutes. So you know what? I really like to take people on a technical ride, because even though I've got a business role, I'm a very techy person. My bread and butter is pen testing, incident response, and also forensics, and so on. And then when I woke up in the morning, I thought, that's going to be the day when I'm going to do a little bit of a hardcore in the morning for you. Is that okay? Good. Yeah, you were expecting techie stuff, right? Good. Yeah, that makes me feel even better. So anyway, let's start. So the subject is very nice because it's pretty much related with anything that we can find during the incident. Of course, for you to feel comfortable, you can download the slides, but you will also see them on the RSA conference place. So please, this is also the place where you can find the tools. So don't be worried that you will not find the tools, you're not at the presentation, and so on. You don't need to register, of course, anywhere. Just relax. It's a morning session. It's supposed to be techy, so you got everything already that I'm going to be presenting in your mobile device under the link. So here we go. When we think about cybersecurity, of course, there is quite a lot of things happening. And I would love to kickstart with a little bit of a story. That's the story that actually happened at the beginning of March this year. And it's Friday afternoon. So, you know, like everybody is just like, oof, it's going to be a nice weekend. I'm going to get some sleep, get some rest, and so on. But unfortunately, I did that thing, which is I checked the email at 6 p.m. You know that there is nothing good ending up with this. So that was the case because this was literally our future customer sending an email that they've got an incident, and I like, can you please connect quickly on a call? I'm like, yeah, totally, let's do it. So I'm connecting on a call. And you know what was actually quite interesting? Do you know that Teams meeting crashes after 32 hours? We've noticed that a couple of times because that incident was 4 sleepless nights and 5 days. And what happened is that there was a ransomware. And that ransomware, it's like a retail, a really big customer, international. That ransomware spread across workstations, but in the stores. So it's a little bit harder to manage them as it appeared. Yeah, it's a very specific situation. So if you got stores, retail environment, there is an office and stores. So that infrastructure usually differs, right? So potentially what was the case is that we thought that this is basically in the office too. Luckily it wasn't, it was just in stores. But my first question when I connected to the call, when there were over 40 people sitting on a call, was, okay guys, so let's make things clear. If that ransomware kickstarts because it was just hanging over there, then what would be the situation? And they said, we're going to be completely smashed. But you know what was the reason why it did not kickstart? It's because the firewall that they had classified the domains that the ransomware was trying to contact with as the malicious domains. So much luck. There's one thing that we are learning always, that even though there is something malicious going on, in most of the cases, Yeah, I don't want to say in all of the cases because it's not, but in most of the cases, that bad thing has to communicate over the network. And because firewall classified it as malicious traffic, it did not stop. But just imagine, I know it's technology, but just imagine if the firewall changes its mind. Because this is a literally go or not go thing. And we've got ransomware spread on thousands of machines. I connected to a couple of machines, and what I saw, it's an unknown executable. I see exactly what it does. Yeah, because I took it, we quickly analyzed it, we decompile it, we drop it into the virus total and stuff like that, and it was a known bad piece of code. Actually, there was, well, one unknown executable, but there was also MSI exec. And in MSI's exec's memory, and that's the Windows process, you could find a malicious piece of code, and we're going to be talking about that, where you can extract it, and I saved it into the file, uploaded it into VirusTotal, and you know what that was? Locky. I think personally that someone who wrote Locky is probably the richest person in this world, because not only you pay a share when you buy Locky in the dark web, but you can also pay for software itself. So it's thousands of dollars, and average salary of a hacker right now is $30,000 per month. So it's a very lucrative business that for some of the people is just worthwhile. And at the end, of course, we contain the incident by using, and you're gonna love it, two things: scheduled tasks. Yeah, so group policy and the scheduled tasks, and we are writing scripts in PowerShell to clean out things that we observed as the indicators of the compromise. And the second thing, we were checking whether things were clean or not, we were connecting through VNC. So just imagine, to thousands of machines, yeah, a whole team was engaged, it was a lot of manual work, and there's always one conclusion that comes to place after these incidents, that companies are just simply not prepared. And also, when we look into Trend Micro statistics, 77% of organizations, they do not have in place ready-to-go incident response plan. It's horrible, and the reason why it's horrible is because when you get into the incident site, they don't know what to do, and time, it's definitely money over there. According to IBM and Security Magazine, so this is a statistic from 2022 summarizing the year, 207 days is the average time hackers are present in the network before they are discovered. According also to FBI, it's 200 plus days. So it doesn't really matter which statistics we look at, they present us this similar thing. And you know what? This is the same thing that we see. Just imagine, this was one of my favorite projects. I have so many stories, but one of those was that there's a government organization, Ministry of XYZ, let's call it this way. And the Ministry of XYZ, having access to personal identifiable information of citizens of a certain country, it's a big thing. They were completely violated because hackers were present in their network for over 12 months. And why it was like this? Because they actually had 42 domain admins. 42 is a specific number, right? But anyway, what was the point is that, of course, it was a mess. And then we were brought on site, we cleaned it up, they set up a new infrastructure, they really approached us really seriously. They said, we don't want to use this, we want to have a new one. New servers, new infrastructure, everything, but no privileged access management, no monitoring of what runs, no processes, tracking, nothing. So the situation is going to repeat, I'm just waiting for the call. And eventually, there's so much going on. So therefore, whenever we think about cybersecurity approach of the organizations to incidents and so on, you can see that 79 of security teams reports it's challenging to consistently monitor vulnerabilities. Yes, and what about misconfigurations? I think actually the biggest vulnerability is a misconfiguration, and this is something that I would love to also talk about. So whenever we find out even a little bit more statistics before we kickstart with the demos, you can see that in this, for example, case, 28% of alerts are never addressed. Question is, how do we interpret an alert? You've got a source of statistics over there as well. And as you can see, there's also a huge amount of pieces of malware that are detected every day. Well, why it's like that? Again, because it's a very lucrative business. Now, that malware gets into very interesting forms, and therefore, the last story before we move on of our customer is that this is the customer in the international field. It's a factory. They're producing some goods, yeah? And they got hit by ransomware. Ransomware completely smashed them. As we discovered, hackers were sitting actually in their network for approximately 3 weeks. So then we get a call, we have to come, and then we come and learn that, well, they already paid the ransom. How much? €500,000. So it's like $1 to $1 right now, yeah? And you know what they got? A decryptor that wasn't working. Ouch, yeah? So what we did, we were like, well, okay, let's give it a chance. And we spent a week on decompiling, working on that decryptor to understand what is this piece of code. And we learned 2 lessons over there. One, that's a little bit of a kindergarten programming. And that level of programming that was there, sorry for criticizing hackers, but I think we can do it. Eventually it was quite poor, but second thing, it's ransomware who was badly written because it was getting into data that was in use, and because data was in use, it was crashing, getting again, encrypting the header again, and again, and a couple of files, thousands of files, were encrypted 5-6 times. So the decryptor couldn't work because of the files being broken, yeah? And that was a bit of a problem. Eventually we fixed this, but what's the chance that you're gonna be, or someone's gonna be in a situation like that, that you will be able actually to fix the decryptor, and so on? That chance, of course, it's pretty low, so it's time to gear up, and let's get into the first technical ride, if you allow me. So what we're going to do first, whenever we are thinking about the extraction of the evidence and understanding what works and what's the problem and so on, one of the most important things to definitely look into is what the malware is about. So this is basically my malware machine. And malware is definitely there. And the question is, of course, where? ILSPy is a tool, so we just don't pay attention to it. But we have sorted over there by using the process hacker, processes by using the column verified signer. Yeah, so this is the dynamic analysis that I'm performing right now. And everything over there is Microsoft Windows or Microsoft Windows Publisher. When WinRTLU, it is process hacker that I'm running right now. So everything looks good. Yeah, ILSPy is a tool that's not digitally signed. So where is malware? And of course, we can search that malware is going to be in the files that are operating system files. And then we are learning, actually, that it's going to be in RunDLL32. Why? Because if we're going to get into the properties of that guy, we are learning over there that there are actually, and using a little bit of knowledge here, there are 2 ways how we can inject things into an executable. One, it's going to be old school way, using the load library API, which anti-exploitation prevention discovers, just to be fair. And then we've got over there a bunch of things loaded in a memory that way. And injection number 2 is to write things directly to the memory of the operating system's process. So, for example, could be RunDLL. And this is something that we're going to find in the memory tab. These 2 things are so important in the analysis, even though it sounds simple, but when there is lots of stress, when this is you and malware and a workstation, and it's your analytical skills that you have to launch, what are you going to do? And one of the first things is to search for the processes, obviously. Second things, check for injections. What are the DLLs that you don't know that are running over there, and what kind of processes are affected by leveraging the memory part over there? Yeah, so that's like classic. Why am I saying this? Where's the book about it? Well, first, Windows internals, it's pretty good over there. But the second is that vast majority of incidents and malware that I've been to or we've been to as a team, it's very similar. Of course, it's thousands of samples and different examples and different infrastructures, but there is a moment where that I see right now that things start to repeat. And I'm like, that's how it is. That's how it is, how that works, yeah? And for example, right now we have also the lol bus lol bin, so living off the lands binaries and scripts case, where you are leveraging the Windows built-in processes to do the nasty stuff. And if we search for the process list and we find some of that, like MSI exec that I was mentioning before, then here we go. We are able to extract possibly malware. Let's dig in further. So we've got that malware client. So there's like a temporary file over there. Like what kind of types of files we are able to launch here? First of all, you can see that we've got DLLs, yeah? But we have also NLS, MUI, why not TMP? Pretty much anything, yeah? But the good news is that when we see anything that is a little shady, like we feel bad about it, if it does not smell right, it's probably not right. So eventually, we will need to go into memory, and then let's sort by the name, that space, and we can find that temporary file over there, so just to enlarge it, and we're going to take one of these addresses to analyze it. Let's take the first one here. So this is the place in the memory where this guy is loaded, and we can see that MZ over there Thirdly, it is a sign of an executable code. MZ, by the way, stands for Marek Żbikowski, who is an inventor of an executable. It's pretty cool to put your initials in every executable, yeah? Everybody will want that. It's too late, but here we go. So that is the sign of an executable code. DLLs, executables, and so on, they all start with this. And here's the second lesson about that. Yeah, what are the ways how we are able to put the code in a code? Because we've got some loader and we've got some malicious code. And in general, we could describe it this way. We've got two files that are stick to each other. There's a loader and there's a file. This guy is going to load that one in a memory. That's what it is. And you're going to find it easily in Notepad even, because that's going to be marked as a binary section. Yeah? Second part, it's going to be like that. So there is a loader and there's a code inside. And you're going to find that code basically in some intelligent way wrap into this code. So it could be in the form of a resource, as we call it, which I will show you, or it could be as well in the form of some riddle to be solved. And when we look at the options over there, let me show you what I've got. First of all, summarizing of what we mentioned, that we've got in here, for example, that particular temporary file, so that's that temp that we got, and that temp has a resource, and that resource, it's called a problem. So I'm using the tool for that one, that's called EELSpy. Just a tip, this is a free tool, I love it. You don't need to use it. You can use the DNSpy or .NET Reflector, or you can use IDA. I'm not advertising anything. IDA in a basic edition is free, but if you want to spread your wings with IDA, you have to pay for it. Yeah, but it's also a fantastic tool used by many in this world. So EELSpy is one of my favorites. Yeah, so there you've got some options here. So we've got a resource. Yeah, but then it's another riddle that we would be able to solve, and that another riddle is basically related, for example, with, let's say, even CoinVault, yeah? So I got a CoinVault over there. This is just one of the ransomware that was used over there. It is also having a resource, but also when we look into details, we can see that there is a riddle to be solved, yeah? So this is another way of how we are able to inject the code. And EELSpy very nicely decompiles you this, and here, that's the byte array that you have to decrypt somehow. Yeah, this is the real malware that we are looking at. So we learned right now that there are two ways of simply wrapping the malicious code. Yeah, one could be just sticking into the loader, another one having some kind of a riddle to be solved, either in the form of a resource or particularly in the form of some kind of a riddle. Yeah, so here we go. Great, so we got that. And of course, sometimes things can look like this, yeah? So they can be obfuscated. So if you're gonna find something that you don't know, use EELSpy for that. Use PE Browse Pro, PE Studio, PE Bear. These are my three, and this one, 4 favorite tools for performing the immediate analysis of an executable that we don't know. And we don't have to be a developer for that, yeah? So that's just a little bit of a case. Now, following up, yeah, so this is what we did more on a static analysis side. But if we're gonna, for example, use over there, run DLL once again, we can get to modules, or actually maybe memory here, and then we can search for strings. Now, strings is gold, because within strings, we're able to learn what this process currently does. If I would like to have a tattoo, I will tell you what I'm gonna tattoo. I'll tattoo whatever works, it's in the memory. That's what would be my tattoo. Because it's always a sentence that when I'm performing the analysis, I'm always thinking about that. Whatever works, it's going to be in the memory. So whatever is happening now, you're going to find in the memory. Therefore, performing the memory dump is a crucial thing. We're not discussing that one now, but here you can see that in the memory, so in strings, it's quite a lot, but let me get to the point. We are seeing that run DLL actually communicates to the server that's called pricing. It's 10, 10, 2, 10, pricing. What's this? And usually when you analyze malware that runs, you're going to see in its strings some trashy domain. It's going to be blah, 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 blah.com, because malware leverages something that we call DGA, so the domain generation algorithm, which makes the domains look super trashy, but they are there, so that when you use some regular expressions, some patterns, and so on, it's usually a long, complex name, .com or .org or .whatever, and you're going to find it there. It's just you need to spend a little bit of time on digging into that place, yeah? So we got that one set. Okay, guys, so we got this. This was a little bit of a warm-up. Hopefully everything is clear, and I would love to take you to a little bit of a ride of how we can extract things from the memory dump and how can we extract things from the disk. So what do we have in a memory? Well, whatever works, it's in a memory. So if malware will not be on the disk, but it will be in the memory injected into the process, this is really the only way you're going to find these things. And you know what's the most ironic thing when you are performing the incident response and the evidence collection? Memory, when you do the memory dump, that's going to be the blue screen. Yeah, that's what I call irony. Yeah, because it's usually you are performing the evidence collection of something and it just crashes. So what is important for incident preparation, incident response, is to make sure that you're going to get a good tool that you test, that it works in your environment, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be the most up-to-date tool. Most up-to-date tools, they tend to cause the blue screens. Yeah, that's the experience. So download, dump it, download FTK Imager. This is free. Get the Belkasoft RAM Capturer. Yeah, so these are the 3 tools that are my favorite, that I'm always using, and yeah, they're always very reliable. And after you do the memory dump, which goes first, you do the disk dump, which goes second. Always in that order. And once we got the dump, let me get there, because I already have a dump created, we can analyze it. And one of the things that we're going to do is to extract some data. Now, this is not a basic session, so I will skip all this, you know, hello world things, PS list, PS scan, and so on that we can analyze. I would love to show you something cool that if you are on the also administrative part of the road, you're gonna, I'm pretty sure, find useful. What we have over here, it's a dump. That particular dump is here analyze dump, yeah, analyze.dmp, and I'm gonna use volatility. That volatility I'm going to use in order to extract the list of DLLs. Yeah. So there are 2 versions of volatility, the version 2 point and version 3 point. Yeah. So I'm using both of them because it depends really what I need them for. Yeah. So again, in forensics, the newest stuff, it doesn't mean better. It means yet another version that might bring you some additional features, but it doesn't always mean better. And over here, you can see that I'm doing the DLL list. So let's do that, DLL list. So we are extracting the list of DLLs loaded in every single process in this dump, yeah? And if we get to the file itself, DLL list txt, it's quite a long list that we can have a look to, and we are here searching. Actually, I'm searching for something concrete, so I'm going to get there if you don't mind. I'm searching for the process that is actually loading the WEVT SVC. Why am I doing this? Because I want to show you to extract files from the memory dump and how to make them consistent. Unfortunately, memory area, it's not very pleasant. So we normally might expect that, oh, there's a file loaded in memory, so I'm going to grab it, and then here we are. Nope. It's going to be some part of the file, maybe it's going to be a file, who knows. But in order to make these files consistent, it's yet another step that you have to take. And that's always a challenging step in forensics, how to make files consistent. So we're going to actually jump into that if you don't mind. So we've got a WEVT SVC. Yep, so that's the guy. And who loads Windows event log? SVC host.exe, and that's the process ID 848. So what I'm going to do is that for now in here, we're going to use once again a volatility, and basically we will actually dump files from that process. So we're going to use the volatility minus py, so we could actually do the arrow up, yeah, like this. And then for now, we will specify that we would like to dump files from the, to keep the names from the process that has 848, so we're going to do it this way. And then we're going to dump everything into the directory minus capital D that's going to be called files. Yeah, which I already have created. Now, that's going to be quite a lot of output because we are here dumping files and anything that is in the process. So it's going to be EVTX files, and it's going to be also DLLs. Whatever you want to get, you're going to get in here. But it's going to be not perfect, and that's what I want to show you. So right now we have extracted all of the EVTXs. Now my job is going to be to go into the files folder, and within the files folder, extract the file or try to get the file, which is the application log. And application log that we're going to be playing with is the one that we will actually try to fix. And this file name, actually, I have over here, so let me just grab it. And this particular file name, it's in here, and this is the VACB, yeah? So this is the file that we got in the files folder, of course, yeah? So let me just get there, files, and this is the one, VACB, yeah? So this is the EVTX log. Now, if I do rename that guy from the VACB into the same file EVTX, and if I would want to run EVTX guy over there, then it's going to be telling me that it's corrupted, yeah? So it's also very good administrative work. So if you perform the log collection, log centralization, some of the logs in the network transfer, they could be broken. And how to fix EVTX? That's a challenge, because EVTX inside, we did analysis, it took some time, it is actually digitally signed. So you've got chunks that are digitally signed, you've got structures that are digitally signed. So if you change something, it just crashes super easily, yeah? So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna take that application log and I'm gonna drop it into the tool that we wrote for fixing. And it's a very easy tool that you totally can work with. And of course, we are sharing the tool. So I just pasted that file over there. That's the folder. And just to show you the structure, in the out directory, there is nothing. Yeah. And in the in directory, that's our input stuff. So yep, for the reference, how it works, it could not be simpler. CQ EVTX recovery in input directory, output directory, enter. Yeah. So if we get into that guy, double click, yeah, let it open, yeah, and that's the guy that is going to take some time for it to open because it has to verify the integrity. But in a moment you can see that we managed to recover a couple of EVTX's entries, yeah, and that's like it is with every single file. Malware that you extract from memory may not always be consistent, but it's going to get some string, it's going to get some characteristic, and it's going to give you a flavor of what's going on, yeah. Interesting so far? Yep, okay, superb. Ooh, so let's move forward. So what we're gonna do? Well, one of the next things that I wanted to show you is related with searching for the traces on the disk. And let's start with services. This is truly one of my favorite areas because there's so much going on around services in the attack space. Services give you persistence, and persistence makes things to run. It could be, of course, scheduled task as well. It could be pretty much anything that you find in outruns from Mark Krusinovich's internals. But services is definitely the place to always look into. Now, I've been talking on RSA for so many years right now around different angles from services. Today, I would love to show you something new, which is related with how to hide a service. So what you see is not what you get. And that's also something that we start observing in the attacks. So let's get into a demo where we're going to learn what does it mean actually to hide a service. Could service be even hidden? Of course. But you cannot really hide things in the operating system as long as we know how to find them, right? So here we go. So this is the setup. What we're going to do. First of all, I've got here a service. That service in that environment, it's called Secure Raccoon Service. Yeah. And that service, I'll just refresh the view, yep, F5, yep, that's basically what we see. Now what we're gonna do, we will hide that service. How do we do it? We first of all do the SC/SD set. We are using the SDDL language that everybody in cybersecurity should at least recognize in some parts. That's actually, I'm a big fan of it, fairly. And over there, just to explain what we are dealing with, we are here setting up permissions that some entities, so like for example, built-in administrators are denied, yeah, to list the configuration, to stop, to delete, and so on, to pause the service. So we will not be able to see it. So let me show you how that works. First of all, we're going to get into a little bit of a display information about the services. Yeah? So get a service, and then we're going to use the Raccoon service. So we're going to get service name, and then we're going to specify the secure. Here we go. It comes out, yeah? So we can get that service, enter, and then it shows us that it's there, yeah? Okay, good. So we're going to hide it right now. This one is done, yeah, success. And we will try to rerun the command once again to be able to discover that. So get service name secure Raccoon service. Nope, not found. Okay, so what's the deal? It says that, well, cannot find any service like that. Okay, so can I like check it out here? If I refresh it, it disappears. So how do I check for the service that I don't even know what's the name of it? What I would love to show you is two sneaky ways of doing that. And one sneaky way, simple though, is the set service, and then we're gonna specify the name. So like we got, and that was we can just specify the service, for example, let's say AG router or something that we don't know, yeah? So it's gonna be service 1, for example, that we don't know. And we're gonna specify its status so that it's gonna be stopped. Just this. And it says the service 1 was not found on the computer. Okay. But if we do, for example, in this case, set service for our Raccoon service, yes, so we're gonna do here set, then we're gonna specify the status and stopped once again. Then this guy tells us that this service cannot be configured due to the following error, access is denied. It's a different answer. Okay, so who knows then? Well, answer to that one is pretty straightforward. In order to know more, the only way of running that and learning that, it's going to be autoruns. And autoruns, of course, it's a fantastic tool that gives us the sense of persistence of what runs over there. And I don't need to tell you, you know, but I want to show you one tip around that and one generic tip. So if we're going to get into services, yeah, then that service, CQ Raccoon service, let me enlarge it, it is actually listed over there. Why is it listed here? Why it wasn't listed in PowerShell? Because this one is asking the good guy, and the PowerShell is asking the guy that doesn't know. So that's the service configuration manager that doesn't know, and this guy is registry. So Outruns goes directly in the not romantic way to the registry to check for what's there, and it just lists you that stuff. That's a difference. What's the conclusion coming out of that? Always, in forensic, have at least 2 tools to show you the same thing. Because, as we see, yeah, some of the tools may use different ways of listing things, and therefore it might be sometimes misleading. So that's one thing. Second, generic lesson. Don't forget that there is this tab called users. That tab called users, it's important because sometimes we might think that when we do open Outruns, it's going to show us a list of what it is, but it doesn't. It shows you the list of what is within the account you run it on. Such an important thing to know. I've seen so many mistakes around that. People open Outruns and they're like, oh, there's nothing there. Yes, because it's under a different user. And this was actually the case of the customer that I was mentioning, because it was a user-generated attack, so administrative access wasn't really gained by the hackers. So it was just very automated attack. And then when we open things as administrator, we couldn't see things. When you open things as a user, you can see that there is actually reg svr32, downloading the script from the internet and launching it within the Windows scripting environment. So this was the low bus, low bins in that case, which we found by just switching this area. Don't forget that. It's a very useful tip. Okay, guys, so another part that is very useful, and thirdly, I call it forensic gold. And forensic gold is a USN journal. USN journal is basically a place that it's a log on the disk that you have to maintain, but in most of the organizations we don't maintain it, and that log on the disk presents us what kind of transactions were made over there. One of the first things I always ask for during the forensic is provide me the list of identities that were there in this machine. Is there any other way to learn who was logging onto this machine? Give me this. Second part, please provide me the prefetch folder, which we're going to get to, and then please provide me the USN journal. USN journal we can get by using the FSUtil, and FSUtil, it's a built-in Windows tool, or you can use the free Eric Zimmerman's tools. It's a very, very smart person who writes tools also on forensics, and he wrote a really nice USN investigating tool. So let's have a look in what we got, if you don't mind. And I would have to show you an interesting example why USN journal makes so much sense. So that is a situation where we've got a folder, let me just bring that in, and that folder that I've got over there It's called RSA. Yeah, so this is this one here. And all of the files, as you can see, that I've created, they are on the 19th of April, which is not today. So what we're gonna do? Well, first we're gonna just add some new file, yeah? So let's create some new file. That's gonna be, for example, RSA for today. And you can see that this file, of course, it's the 25th of April. Okay, so what's the drill? The drill is that if we would like to play a little bit with the metadata of the files, what we can do, we can actually play around it by setting up the metadata in a way we want it. So for example, our job over there, it's going to be simply to make sure that we have all of the files with the metadata overwritten like we got, for example, for the file. Yeah, so RSA is going to be moved a little bit back in time. Why not? Yeah, so this is the setup. Okay, so let me show you how we're going to do it, and we're going to do it with PowerShell. And one of our setups over there is going to be to play, of course, with the metadata which we are able to change in Windows. Yeah, and that's basically the setup. So that's how it works. The first thing we do, we specify the variable data, and then we take the variable data from the file.txt, last write time. Okay, so let's set it up. If we do display data, yeah, you can see that that's the April 19th. Now, please observe one thing. I, on purpose, have these windows one by next to each other because we need to observe the metadata of RSA. Currently, it's the 25th of April, yeah? So we're going to do that for every item in the RSA folder, take the sample, of course, that file txt, so the 19th of April, and overwrite it for all of the files, yeah, if it's different. Now, what happens? Please have a look that RSA, it's the 19th of April right now. This is a common mechanism that's used by malware. And we could be thinking, okay, well, malware pretends to be a couple of years old so that you think it's older. Nothing for us here to be afraid of. What we're going to do, we're going to use the fsutil, USN, read, journal, and then in this case, we've got an F drive. And what we're going to do, we will, at that time, it's going to take some time, analyze everything from the drive. So we are listing the journal right now, and that journal is going to show us what kind of potentially changes were made to the metadata of files. And this one is pretty useful because at the end we've got a case where we are able to understand of what's going on, also put it on the timeline. Yeah, so that's the setup. Okay, so we got this. Now, whenever we are thinking about the prefetch, and I'm going to continue, and let's wait for this guy to finish. Prefetch, of course, shows us what kind of processes were executed in the operating system. And the point around prefetch, it's a lot, yeah? So I want to show this to you live, so let's keep it this way. But prefetch itself, it is also a very valuable resource, but don't forget that prefetch is actually not enabled on servers. You have to just change the one registry key to get the prefetch. What is in prefetch? Let's have a look. We're going to go to Windows, prefetch, and in the meantime I can see that this guy is done. Start dot. And here, within prefetch folder, in the operating system, we can find out what kind of processes were there running. So for example, one of the things that I started, one of the things that I started underneath was command prompt, so CMD. So that's the one, yeah? But we can go back in time and see what's out there. And if you're going to find something suspicious, this is not a reliable mechanism, but it's a very useful mechanism as a backup for the process tracking, yeah? So if, for example, you're going to find some process that's weird, like MFW something something, I don't know what that is, we can do copy as path, and then eventually we can analyze it, and we can get into the CQ prefetch parser, minus file, paste, minus A, and this gives us a background on what kind of executable that is, including how many times it has been executed and when. You got the whole history, and what's the characteristic of malware usually? Malware runs once. Unless it's just built-in Windows tools like Reg SVR and things like this, run DLL. Yeah, so if it's not like that, if it's some common custom executable, then you're going to see that one actually run once. And you're going to see when. It's a cool characteristic. Plus, if you wondered, like, oh, I don't see that executable in the system anymore, then what you're gonna do? You're gonna technically check the journal. When was it? Was it deleted? So if it was deleted, then you're gonna see it here. It's all there. I love it. So you can get into RSA, for example. Have a look. We had a file RSA where we've got a file not only being created, yeah? So that's the RSA, and so on. So we get a basic info change and basic info change close. That, when you see it, this stands for one situation, metadata change. And when you're going to see an executable that has a metadata being changed, you are like, that's the evil one. Sometimes it might help you to find the problem in a backwards way. So you're going to find that in the journal. So show me all the places where metadata has been changed. And then you got the list of executables. And then you were like, that one is a little suspicious. Let's see where that is. Oh, it's not there on a disk. It has been deleted. OK, let's recover that then. Is it easy to recover that file from the drive? Yeah, pretty much. If it wasn't permanently deleted, then yes. You can use Power Forensics. It's free. It's easy. Or if it was permanently deleted, you can go always to MFT and find out if there are some remains over there, because files that are like up to approximately 700 bytes might be hiding in MFT actually. So that's also quite a nice thing to check. Okay guys, so the last part that we got is the coolest, I would say, because we're going to be playing with secrets. And these are the secrets that we are talking about, yeah? So it doesn't maybe look very welcoming, yeah? But what you see on the left, it's the content of the registry that represents cache logon data. Some people call it credentials, but please, after this session, don't call it credentials, or call it as you want, but please do not mean credentials, because these are not credentials. Since when we are supplying the value on the left to log in? We don't. Yeah, so what is the cache logon data? What's the cache credentials? So that's one question that I'm going to answer. Second, if your workstation gets compromised, what are the risks? And this is something that I would love to show you. So let's answer these two things. And of course, in the slides, if you want, on the right side, we have reverse engineered cache logon data. And on the right side, you have an identification of every section that you can find in a registry with the description of what that is. There are no secrets. And that's basically the case. Okay, good. So let's see what we got. So first of all, whenever we are thinking about the secrets, and especially when we get into the machine that we're going to be analyzing, yeah? So let me bring on that virtual environment that we're going to be touching base on. We've got over here the following situation. That's this. And here is a user. His name is Freddy Krueger, yeah? It's a good guy, yeah, this time. So we're going to be logging on as Freddy Krueger with the password, p@SSW. Okay, cool. Now, Freddy's machine could have been compromised, so my job is going to be to check, we don't need to run things as admin, by the way, what kind of places in Freddy's machine are creating some kind of a risk. So what are the secrets that Freddy has stored? Now, what do I mean by this? So for example, if you store the password in Google Chrome or in Outlook and so on, we've got a situation that looks like this. So I have here Chrome Pass. It's not a Google Chrome, it's Chrome Pass. And over there, you can see that I've got LinkedIn, I got Freddy, and there is a password over there, yeah? So Chrome Pass, it's not Chrome. So how could it be that that tool can extract a password from Chrome? Because there is a one rule that we have to remember, and it's also for risk assessment in the organization. Every tool that you run as yourself, so the user runs as herself, himself, has access to all the secrets stored by that user. So if you run things as you, anything stored by you, it's not a secret to that app. So if the Minesweeper is bad and you're going to run it, Minesweeper is going to know all your secrets. So basically, don't run the software that we don't know, but that's nothing new here, yeah? So here we go. So, oh, that's interesting. So what we're going to do, so the next stage is, what I would love to show you is where are the secrets stored on the user side? And this is the practice. I feel like I'm at work right now, yeah? So I'm doing the forensics, machine analysis, bring it on. What do we do? CQ-DP API, blob searcher. And then I do directory. Normally I would just leave the C drive, but because we don't have 20 minutes, we're gonna go into users, Freddy Krueger, app data, local, Google, Chrome. And then I will do the recursive search, and I will search save the output into the CQ tools, and just to have a nice view, I'm going to stream it to the text file, yeah? So these are all the secrets that user is storing by Google Chrome. On the C drive, it's going to be better. By the way, it's nice to run it for yourself, so that you're going to know on what kind of secrets you even have on your workstation. Maybe you have something sensitive, that application stored under your name. Hard to say. But if the workstation has been compromised, I want to know what else hacker knows. And there are hacking tools like that are searching for passwords that are stored by the users. This is also to show you that, but in the ethical way. In some countries, for example, like in Germany, sometimes you cannot get into certain privacy spheres. Therefore, this is a very ethical way because it's going to list you the secrets. And what we are learning over there is that there is actually a secret that's managed by the Google Chrome, and that's B55. That's the master key GUID. Okay, let's remember that because we're going to be leveraging this. By the way, underneath we've got a Chihuahua and triple DES. That's actually quite weak. So what we're going to do now, what I would love to prove to you that our secrets are as strong as and also dependent on our password. So what we're going to do, we will override cache logon data so that user will log in with a different password. And then because of that, we're going to see whether the secrets are accessible or not. Okay, so that's going to be the setup. Not connected, because we are logging on with the cache logon data, right? So it has to be off. Okay, next, repair your computer, troubleshoot, advanced option, and very advanced option command prompt, yeah? Here we go. So let's move forward. Let me enlarge the font because I need everybody to see this. We're going to get into the D drive, CQ tools, and for that, I'm going to use the Kiwi Secure Edition Mimikatz. This is basically our Secure Edition's version of the Mimikatz. In cooperation with Benjamin, we got that. So here we go, LSA dump. I'm going to use that module then, cache, and I'm going to override cache logon data. I have to type it, so it's a Windows, system32 config, and then system, and then it's a D, Windows, system32, here we go, config, and then security/kiwi to override cache logon data. So cache logon data is stored in a security hive, which, by the way, it's fantastic in terms of forensics. Have a look. What was the last time Freddy Krueger logged in? That time. Yeah, what if, for example, some information in security log is missing because hacker cleaned security log and we are here analyzing a domain account? You're going to be like, I don't care. We can always check in the cache logon data in the registry. I use this very often in practice. Yeah. So here we go. What we're going to do next? Well, continue. And right now, while we are not connected to the network, we're going to prove one point, that our password is a very important asset because it protects our secrets as well. So here we go. That's the Freddy Krueger. I will try to log in as Freddy Krueger with the password, enter, doesn't work. How could it be? It's a domain account. Exactly. We have overwritten cache logon data. We're going to log in with a password Mimikatz, and we're going to we're going to actually violate the non-repudiation in terms of a logon, yeah? So here we go. Good. So Chrome pass. Let's see. Do we see the password? It takes a little bit of time. Yes, because we cannot decrypt the B55 master key with the current password hash. But, you know, I'm a little evil here. It's like you wouldn't be here, I want to be here if it was perfect. So what I want to show you, that the password first, it's not there, but because in the domain controller, we have discovered very interesting certificate which is stored as a data blob, as a piece of text in ntds.did. And if you go to the CQ ELSA secrets dumper file exported PFX, and if we import it, let me just do it. So here we go. Next password secure. So we are almost there. And then we got a next, finish, okay. and then cert MGR MSc. We're here learning that in the domain controller, on-prem, there is a certificate that you cannot, and let me repeat, you cannot change. You cannot change it. Once it leaks, you're done. Your infrastructure is always compromised. So whatever you think about right now, like, can I do, I would just say no. Yeah? No. You cannot fix it. So with this positive accent, let's move forward. And we're gonna, and these are our last steps over there. We've got basically CQ tools, DP API, and what we're gonna do. First of all, we're gonna calculate the hash of our current passwords. So that's the MIMI counts. It has to be accurate, so perfect. So we got that guy. Second, we're gonna do CQ master key AD, and then we're gonna do PFX exported. That's the one from the domain. Now, we're gonna do new hash, so this is our current passwords hash. And the very last step, we're gonna here use that B55 key that we learned that it exists. So we're gonna do Microsoft protect sid B55. Bring it on. We're gonna take this guy, copy as path, and paste it here, and enter. This regenerates us a key. So this creates us this AD modified little guy. So we're gonna do underscore good, and then we're gonna do AD modified, not opened, no, but just rename, and we're gonna replace it. So we have decrypted and encrypted, but first decrypted with the certificate from the domain that guy. And the very last part, give it an attribute of a system and hidden, and bring it on, tick. And then if it doesn't work, I can go and sell coconut on the beach. Worked. Phew. Okay. Oof. I mean, it would be cool too, yeah, but maybe not today. Anyway, what's the conclusion? Conclusion is that our infrastructure is as secure as our privileged access, and monitoring identity for forensics, for knowing what is going on, then basically it's one of the key things to success to build a full picture of the attack. Monitoring processes is the second thing that we need to do in order to be able to connect the dots and understand basically what's going on. Also, one of the most important parts, and that's step number 3, is to find out your approach to USN Journal and boost your incident response readiness. We never know when the attack is going to happen to us. It might be on a larger scale, it might be on a smaller scale, but there's nothing less comfortable than not knowing what is going on. And knowledge is definitely power. Therefore, of course, as always, I am sharing the tools, sharing the slides. So this is basically where you can download the tools. Some of them are recognized by antivirus because these are the hacking tools, so just fairly saying. And also the QR code that I was demonstrating, where you can find also information about how to get the tools. So hopefully everything was right. Hopefully you learned something in the morning, and hopefully that technical ride was successful. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see you guys at the RSA once again. And if you have any questions, then please, of course, come over here. I'll be happy to answer those. Thanks a lot.